Hari Hari. This is the story of Sri Balaram, part 5. Balaram is the 8th of the 10 avatars of Vishnu. So when Krishna and Balaram ran away from the battlefield and jumped off the mountain that Jarasandha set on fire, they were on their way back to Dwaraka. Dwaraka was just recently built. And they came across these two personalities who for them were quite odd looking, because this man and this lady were more than twice the size, more than twice the height of Krishna and Balaram. So Krishna and Balaram, they walked up to this man and this lady. And obviously the man was royalty, because Krishna and Balaram noticed he was dressed in a way that neither of them had ever seen any king dressed in such beautiful, rare clothing, ornaments, jewels, and so on. And the lady by his side was equally beautiful, equally dressed in very, very rare items and articles of clothing that neither of them had ever seen. So Krishna asked the gentleman, he says, well, who are you? Where do you come from? You're obviously not from this time. And the gentleman said, I am King Kakudmi, and this is my daughter Revati. And Kakudmi told the story of how he had gone to Lord Brahma to ask for some suggestions as to who should be married to his daughter. And Brahma told him that his daughter Revati is actually Jyotishmati, who had wanted to marry Anantashesh in a previous lifetime. However, Lord Brahma had told them that time on earth has passed, and that the city of Kushastali, where the king resided and lived, it was no longer. It was gone. And Krishna said, well, where is this Kushastali? And Kakudmi replied, it was actually right here. We were actually walking towards the capital city of Kushastali. And Kakudmi pointed in a particular direction. And Krishna said, well, that's not Kushastali, that's the city of Dwaraka. And Kakudmi was obviously very surprised that what was his capital city was essentially the resting place of the city of Dwaraka. Meanwhile, Revati and Balaram are looking at each other. And Revati is quite attracted to Balaram. She doesn't know that Balaram is Anantashesh. All she understands is that she is quite attracted to Balaram, quite interested in being Balaram's wife. And Balaram is looking at her as well. Meanwhile, Krishna and Kakudmi are having this discussion about Kushastali. And Kakudmi finally says, I was looking for, Lord Brahma told me to come, to be here in this place, and to wait because Anantashesh would come and reveal himself. So I'm waiting for Anantashesh. And Krishna was smiling because, of course, Krishna knows that Balaram is Anantashesh, none other than Anantashesh. And Kakudmi is wondering why Krishna is smiling. And they look at Revati and Balaram, who are looking at each other with affection. And Kakudmi says, it's very unfortunate that the people of Dwapara Yuga are so short. Kakudmi came from a different time and place, where they were 2-3 times taller than the human beings of Dwapara Yuga. So Kakudmi said, it's very unfortunate that you people are all so short, so small. There's no way I can ever give my daughter to someone who is short and small. So Balaram, hearing this, Balaram carries a plow, which is another reason why, is the reason why he's called Haladhara. Hala means plow, Dhara means one who holds. So Haladhar Balaram with his plow. He placed his plow on Revati's shoulder lightly, and he began to pull her down. And as he began to pull, Revati slowly began to shrink more and more and more and more until she was the same size as Balaram. When Kakudmi saw this, he realized that no one other than Anantashesh himself would have the ability to do such a marvelous, such a wonderful feat. And with that realization, he understood that Lord Balaram was none other than Anantashesh. So they went into the city of Dwarka, and Balaram and Revati got married. They later had 2 sons and a daughter, Balaram and Revati. Many, 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 many years later, the young princess of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna, has gotten married. He has many, many sons. One of his sons, his name is Samba. Samba was a very mischievous young boy. And with a group of other of Krishna's sons, they wanted to play a trick. So nearby, there were some great sages, Vishwamitra Muni and Narad Muni, among many other great sages. They were gathered there for an event of Hari Katha, chanting the holy names of Krishna, Sadhu Sangha. So they were there, these powerful sages, engaged in Hari Katha, and Samba hatched a plot, hatched a plan. So with some of his friends, he dressed himself up as a woman, and he put a pillow under his sari to indicate, to show that he was pregnant. So with his friends, Samba, they went to this gathering where these great sages were. And the joke they were trying to play was they wanted to see what would happen if they asked the sages whether Samba was going to give birth to a boy or a girl. So they did this. They went to the sages, and Samba's dressed as a woman. He has a pillow under his sari. And the boys asked to these great sages, "My dear sages, here this woman, she's very, very shy. She wants to know if she's going to have a son or a daughter." Now the sages were not very impressed with the boys interrupting Hari Katha for such foolishness. And they cursed Samba. They cursed and said, "This person will give birth to an iron club that will destroy your entire family." The boys were horrified. They pulled off the sari that was wrapped around Samba, and sure enough, that pillow had turned into an iron club. The boys dragged this iron club to Ugrasena in the court in Dwarka, and they told King Ugrasena and all the ministers what had happened, the curse. So King Ugrasena, realizing that something very unfortunate was going to happen if they did not deal with the situation, he ordered that the iron club be ground up into powder and thrown in the ocean. So the soldiers, they took the heavy iron club, they ground it into powder, but they got a little lazy. They did not complete the job, and they left a small piece of iron left, and they thought, "Oh, it's so small, it doesn't matter. We're too tired of just taking care of the entire club, just throw all of it." So they threw all the powder into the ocean with that little small iron piece. That little small iron piece was swallowed by a fish. This fish was later caught. And when the fisherman cut open the stomach, he removed that little iron piece. And he sold the iron piece to Jara, a hunter. And the hunter used that small iron piece as the arrowhead on one of his arrows. The powder, that iron powder that was washed into the ocean, was pushed back onto the beach by the waves. And many, 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 many years later, the Yadu dynasty was on that beach, and they were having a festival. And the members of the Yadu dynasty unfortunately got drunk. And in that drunken stupor, two of the members of the family, the Yadu dynasty, Satyaki and Kritavarma, got into a fight. And that conflict spread throughout the entire Yadu family, and all of them began fighting on the beach. But the powder that had washed onto the beach grew into steel iron rods. And it is these rods that the Yadu dynasty was using to destroy itself. Even Krishna and Balaram were using these iron rods to fight against the other members of the Yadu dynasty. After the destruction had happened, Balaram left that place. He sat in meditation. And in his meditation, his physical human body of Balaram disappeared and transformed into Anantashesh. And he swam back into the ocean. Krishna saw this, and after talking to his secretary, Uddhava, was sitting down and resting in the forest. And Jada the hunter mistook Krishna's foot for an animal and shot Krishna's foot. And with that excuse, Krishna decided to end his pastimes on this planet. That is the story of Sri Balaram. Hari Hari.